My name is Azam. I'm 30 years old, and I'm ashamed to say I've never voted. But I'm not alone. 5 out of 10 Brits choose not to vote every election. 7 out of 10 Muslims choose every election not to vote. And yet we seem to be angered and frustrated with the rise of groups such as the British National Party, EDL and the National Front. I'm here to pose a question to you today. How much of it is our fault? I'm trying to convince myself that I should be voting, and I should be voting for a party I believe in, which was the Conservative Party. But now I'm asking myself, you know what, they're just the same as everyone else. That poster was just ridiculous. It's got a poster of Gordon Brown, big smile on his face, and it says, what is it? I've doubled the national debt, vote for me. You think Saatchi and Saatchi come up with a campaign that doesn't actually make you think, oh, why don't I vote for Gordon Brown? Oh, and did you know he doubled the national debt? What that poster says to me is we're not good enough to tell you how we're going to fix it, so we're just going to tell you what the other guy did wrong. Do you not think maybe that's partly the problem with politics today? I still have a few little doubts in my mind, and I'm hoping that through the discussion, the debate and the journey, I'll be able to strengthen my resolve and then hopefully take it upon myself to help others. So this is all part of our political quest to try and find out the truth behind the validity or the permissibility of voting. And also, you know what? Why don't we vote? That's really what we're trying to get from them. We're trying to find out why they feel that they need to disengage, and really to get their opinion on what they think would happen if all Muslims disengage from the political process. Is it really going to help our situation? If I'm going to find out how much ethnic minorities really are to blame, I need to find out more about the BNP. So I'm going to go online, have a look at some of their videos, see what they really stand for, and to find out, you know what, are they as anti-Muslim as people make out? It's a massive anti-Muslim pay. I mean, do you know what I find most amazing? Is the reoccurrence of, is it Anjem Chowdhury's face? We've got a Muslim guy on their website, on their YouTube page, promoting the anti-Muslim sentiment in Britain.
Not only would we bring our boys and girls back from Afghanistan, we would also resolutely refuse and will absolutely oppose any attempt to involve British troops in a war in or against Iran. It's none of this country's business.
It's amazing how they have changed the face of the party. He is actually quite a good speaker. He seems to speak in the interest of the people. And he's using that kind of strategy of we're not all about immigration, even though the first 5.5 minutes he said, I'm not going to mention immigrations. But to be really honest, this is why I think people are getting sucked in. I think sometimes people choose to ignore what the hidden messages are and just focus on what he's saying in the hope that they might find someone who does care about the British people. But I don't think this guy's got anything British in him at all. I just found a video clip titled Sikh Friends of the BNP Advises on Muslim Issues, Part 1 of 2. This is so sickening, because I don't know a single proper Sikh person go out and join the BNP. I can't actually think of any even remotely intelligent ethnic minority or white person for that matter. They really are heavily anti-Muslim. And it seems that it's quite a clever little ploy, because the thing is, when you hate Muslim people, you're not technically a racist. I actually just picked up the BNP as generally a bad party for Britain. I just thought, you know, this is something that's not good for us. As a Muslim, it wasn't a particularly Muslim thing. It was more because I'm a little bit brown. But I never really realised how heavily anti-Muslim he was. And the fact that they've gone as far as to get Sikh people to come on and talk about how dangerous Muslims are for Britain. Look at that. 1987, 553 votes, right? 10 years later, 1997, 35,832 votes. So you can see that they've been steadily growing, 500, 7,000, 35,000, 47,000, but this is the incredible bit now, right? So this is where it starts to get a little bit scary. In 2005, the British National Party contested 117 seats, and they pulled in 192,746 votes. If they've quadrupled in 2001 to 2005, and that's by going up for, the maths is pretty equal actually. They went for 33 and they got 47,000. Then they went for 117, so effectively 3.5 times more seats. And they managed to effectively quadruple the amount of votes. So that means if they're going up for 339, effectively timesing that by 3 again, there is a chance that the BNP will break 500,000 votes this year unless we do something. Now, if that doesn't scare the British people, then I don't know what will. And if it doesn't scare the British people, it should sure as hell scare the Muslims, because we're the ones they don't seem to like. Do you know what? I can't handle looking at Nick Griffin's face anymore. I need to do something about this. We need to do something about this. There's no point sitting here. I need to pack my bags, hit the street. BNP are anti-Muslim, then the Muslims need to be anti-BNP. We shouldn't need people like United Against Fascism and Hope Not Hate, which are very, very good organisations out there to try and stop the BNP. We should be doing this ourselves. It's quite sad, actually. I'm 30 years old and now I'm looking to do something, but you know what? It's never too late. I'm going to get involved and I'm going to make a difference.
The BNP are a nationalist party. You can tell that, of course, from the title, that the N in BNP. Yeah? They have a nationalist message, and their counterparts on the continent, like Le Pen in France, doing the same thing. Their political strategy has changed under the present leadership of Nick Griffin, who's trying to make them look semi-respectable. People who you could vote for. These aren't just ruffians. These are people who've got something to say, which chimes in with quite a lot of what British opinion is thinking, not just white British people, but also people who are non-white, who have actually lived here for a long time.
Are ethnic minorities and non-voting population to blame for groups such as the BNP?
I don't think that the ethnic populations are to blame for the rise of the BNP, but what you can argue is that if they were mobilised more effectively and took more part in the political process, then the BNP would be reduced in influence and have much less chance of making an impact and gaining inroads.
The extreme right parties have come into power mainly because the majority of the community has not voted. If we look especially in the northern regions, in Burnley and the northwest, they came into power in the councils and in European elections because the voter turnout rate was very low. And therefore, this is a clear indication that Muslims must participate and change that so that they make a pivotal role.
You know, as far as I'm concerned, you'll be accountable for choosing to ignore that tool. If there is a way for you to potentially be making a positive change to the world around you and you ignore it.
What if Allah asks you, what did you do? You had the opportunity. And then, you know, if there's like 2,000 Muslim voters and half of them don't bother to vote, but you get 1,200 BNP guys voting, and then you complain afterwards that, you know, they're not letting us, giving us planning permission for a mosque, they're not letting us build an Islamic school.
What you are doing is satisfying those individuals that are vehemently against Islam. Unfortunately, we have a lot of Islamophobes in Britain right now.
If we don't vote, just like the European elections, there's a real risk that the BNP and other fascist elements will once again have the influence.
Our religion teaches us, and as human beings, we can see in the world every little bit counts.
Muslims abstaining, it gives other parties, such as the BNP, a greater playing field in which to make their case, and it does improve their chances of being elected, yes.
I resist voting this idea of a Muslim vote, because I don't think that Muslims should be voting on, in inverted brackets, Muslim issues. I think it would be a sad day for us as Muslims if we were so selfish that we were only interested in bettering the rights of our community. As members of this society, we should be voting in a way which seeks to improve society for everyone.
Morally speaking, I feel that if you're not part of the solution, you are part of the problem, and I'm with Malcolm X on that. So if you feel strongly about something, but you don't stand against that injustice, then I feel that you share in the wrong that's been done, especially in a country like this where no one's got a gun to our heads and is stopping us from speaking out.
If it gets to a point where the British government starts talking about banning hijab in schools, colleges, and universities, what will you do then? Will you end up like the Muslims in France, who are totally apolitical? And look at the situation that they're in. I'll put this on camera. If that ever happened and it came to a vote, every single Muslim in this country, even the ones that are hardcore anti-voting, would vote. Why? because they would use the principle of the lesser of the two evils. Now, what we're saying is that let's use that lesser of the two evils now, before we get to that situation.
It's famously, in Spain, the last ruler of Spain, he was complaining when the Muslims, he was crying when the Muslims were getting defeated and slaughtered by the Spanish, and his own mother cursed him. Said, you sat on your backside and did nothing, and now you're complaining about what's happening to the Muslims. So if we don't do something, I personally believe that we're responsible.
I know it sounds crazy, but we have actually gone on a mission to look for some BNP members because we want to just talk to them. We want to open up a little bit of dialogue. We want to see what's going on. These extreme racists who are out canvassing would be easier to find. God, what do you have to do to find a white person in Britain? Sorry, a racist white person in Britain. Oh, more shelf in the foot, they did not. Yeah, so basically, brother, all it is we're saying, look, right, we're not saying that voting is going to change the world. But what we're saying is if all the black and Asian people in all of these areas voted intelligently, so say you got a Conservative stronghold or a Labour stronghold and a BNP stronghold, so say it's a two-horse race, yeah? If it's a two-horse race and you know that you got to choose between a BNP and a Labour, even though you think both of them are jokers, it comes down to the question, if you had to choose between a murderer and a thief to come and run your house, who would you choose? Everyone says the thief, yeah? But imagine you never chose when you had the chance to. And then the murderer turns up at your door and you'll be like, oh, no, how come I got a murderer? Thing was, when you had your chance to say it, everyone said there's no point. If all of us got all the black people, all the Asian people, all the other ethnic minorities in this country got up and said, you know what? We count, we don't want you here. They won't stand a chance, bruv. They won by something like 5,000 votes last time. They're trying to shut down the Nigerian churches in these areas.
Yeah, they are.
They're trying to shut down the churches. They're trying to shut down the mosques. They're trying to stop more and more people from becoming politically active. So what do? We
have to fight.
We fight, and we fight, we unite. We're probably going to be here for the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So if we're playing the long game, let's play the long game. Let's not try and knock it off. Rather than saying, I ain't going to change it tomorrow, so I'm going to close it, start planning for the changes that we're going to make. Nigerian people went to get a new church put up. They said no. He said, I don't want no more of your kids in my area. That's exact words. Don't want no more of your kids in this area. And then you tell me, yeah, are we meant to sit back or are we meant to do something? Like you said, brother, we need to fight. The thing is, you fight with your mind. Do you know what was really interesting though? Barking and Dagenham, yeah? An area the government knows the BNP have a stronghold in, and yet the ethnic minorities, the young black kids, and a good young black kid have got absolutely nothing, no reason to vote for anyone but BNP. Even they're saying the only newsletter, the only people trying to get my vote is the BNP. I don't believe it. 1.5 hours we're driving around Dagenham looking for the BNP. End up talking to some young boys, had a good conversation, left, and half an hour later we get a phone call just as we get back out of Dagenham and into Loughton that the BNP have just turned up in a big van. We weren't looking for the BNP to cause any trouble. We were looking for them because we wanted to get their point. We wanted to give them a chance to make a statement on film without an argument, just to tell us their side of the story, what they're looking to do, and what the true BNP is all about. And it's just a shame that the minute they turned up was half an hour after we had already left. I don't know, maybe they chickened out and waited till we leave to turn up, but something tells me that they were there for more than a conversation. We've just spotted some brothers canvassing for the Respect Party, some Muslims. Let's go and find out what they think.
We're campaigning for the election this year. Yes. 3 of us are standing from Respect.
I'd like to get your opinion on how much of a real risk we feel that there is of parties such as the BNP, and how much are ethnic minorities who choose not to vote to blame.
If people don't vote, basically what happens, you're letting the people like the BNP come in.
And a lot of people are saying that they want to vote BNP. And when you say why, because they're not happy with New Labour.
What you're saying is people are almost looking at BNP as now the People's Party, the common man's party and the poor man's party, because they feel as though the people who are supposed to be representing them, i.e. Labour, are no longer giving them the representation they need. Of the three candidates, one of them couldn't speak English. No, I'm not a racist, but I think if you're going to stand up for Parliament, you're going to stand up to be a councillor, to represent the people in your area. Yes, you have a high Bengali population, but you've got to learn to speak English. You can't be a councillor and say that you're going to understand and address the people's concerns when you need a thesaurus to understand them or a dictionary. It's not going to happen, is it, really? But I think it is good that they're standing up. I think it's good that they're going out there and getting the young people into it. Yeah, no, that was interesting, very interesting, to see that they're proactively going out there. But I just hope that what it doesn't do is it doesn't make it into a bit of a mockery. We're going to take your face and we're going to put it onto YouTube, man.
Si, senor.
So we're on our way to Dagenham to see the BNP. Or try to see the BNP anyway. We've been there a couple of times, but unsuccessful so far. Mostly because we want to let them have a chance to give their side of the story and to see if we can get them to say thank you to all of you out there who decided not to vote. And to remind you of what will happen if they come into power. We'll continue to drive around Dagenham a bit longer, see if we can find the BNP van, just to get to talk to them, really. This is where they were last time, so if we hang on a little while, hopefully they'll come. So it seems we do make a difference and we can have an impact on the general elections. And yes, if not completely, at least partially, we are to blame for the rise of the BNP. But the question is, why? Why don't we vote? Why do we feel like we need to disengage from British politics? We went onto the streets to find out.
Hi, I've got 2 minutes for an interview.
Sorry.
Do you vote?
No.
Hi, do you vote?
No.
No? Do you vote in the UK? Did you say yes or no?
Do you vote? Bro, do you vote, brother?
Do you vote?
No, I don't.
Can I ask you a question? Why don't you vote?
Because I believe there's no point. No, I've never voted.
You've never voted?
Not at the moment, no.
No, why not?
Because whoever you vote for, sir, will they change our area?
Voting it hasn't brought about any benefits.
And it's the policy, I think they're all the same. It's not going to make a difference in my life.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah?
I will be, yeah.
You do?
I want to vote for Labour.
And I think this is necessary for me to vote. It is important.
Do you think voting actually makes any difference?
Personally, no, I don't.
Well, I know it's like it's wrong, but I just feel like that it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, it does.
In what way?
Because every vote counts, innit? It does make difference, yeah, because you choose the people who you want to choose.
They're more or less like all offering us the same thing.
Our voice is a minority voice, so sometimes you do think that there's no point.
Whether it's Conservative, Labour, Liberal, as far as I'm concerned, whatever person you vote, will they change our life, our environment, our taxes, our insurance?
Is your voice heard by your politicians?
No, really, because we was demonstrating when it was Iraq war, and millions of people was demonstrating, but government didn't take no notice of it.
If we don't get involved in the whole voting system, do you think that's working against us in a way? If we say we are a minority and we just sit on our backs without doing anything, then don't we stay a minority?
You know, when you're being labelled something and you feel like you're never going to win, so you just kind of have a defeatist attitude, and I think that's what we've adopted, well, some of us that don't vote, a defeatist attitude where you're thinking, well, my vote won't matter.
By us not voting, do you agree that you're essentially giving your power to the BNP and BNP is capitalising on that and coming on board?
Yes, I do.
I suppose, yeah, you do have a point there, yeah.
I don't think directly, I think indirectly you leave the door open.
As long as BNP don't come involved, we're all here to help, innit?
Okay, what if the BNP came into power?
I don't think that will happen.
Why not?
I just don't see it happening.
If I don't vote, then that's a lost vote that could be going against the BNP.
If I don't vote to one of the major parties, then obviously BNP have more chance.
If you look at the word democracy and look at its meaning, democracy meaning legislation without God, we don't believe that.
democratically, like we're supposed to live according to Islamic rules.
Yeah.
So that it don't really make a difference, does it?
And as Muslims, we need to, we follow Allah's laws. These political parties are not following that. In fact, it's on the contrary.
Muslims shouldn't be involved in any sort of politics because you're still encouraging, what's happening in the media and across the world.
What would you say to our community people that say, well, voting doesn't make any difference, I'm not going to vote, it's haram to vote?
I think they're just the beginners. They hot-headed, they don't see things as a whole.
Because we're in this country, we should, as Muslims, adhere to the rules and regulations of this country, and because we're living as part of this society, to make it more cohesive, we then need to make a stand, and we do need to become involved with the voting system.
It can make a difference when there are people like me think like they don't care, but their votes all add up, innit?
If you sacrifice the right to vote or don't use it, then you have no grounds for complaint and you haven't had your say, you haven't influenced it one way or another.
Coming up in part 2, I've taken it upon myself to try and demonstrate to the Muslims within this area the impact that they had when the BNP came into power.
Get me a sheikh to prove to me that democracy is haram and voting is haram in an election where we have a voice.
If any voice amongst the Ummah is loud, it is that of Asghar Bukhari and the MPACUK team. They're known for championing pro-democracy amongst the Muslims. I heard they were in town and I decided to go along to find out more.
Can I leave that to you? Yeah? Voter registration drive, man. Voter registration drive. The masjid is organising a voter registration drive. Voter registration drive in the mosque. Voter registration in the mosque. Voter registration in the mosque today. I'll just give you that. It's a voter registration drive in the mosque today. Voter registration drive today. The mosque is organising a voter registration drive.
You've been sitting here convincing people and you're getting the same arguments. Why is it the imams aren't convincing them otherwise?
I wish someone was actually asking that question. Yeah. The problem is no one's asking that question at all. Yeah. They still want to do the same old talk that they've been doing for 50 years. Yeah. I mean, this mosque is forward thinking. That's why they got a voter registration drive today. Yeah. But most mosques in the country, 99.9%, simply refuse. We're not anti any party. What we say is, in that particular area, if that MP has worked against the interests of the Muslims or the rights of the Muslims in this country or anywhere in the world, right? And is not ethical, then Muslims should not be voting for them.
But what about the people who don't vote at all? What are you doing to get the people who are just completely indifferent to the entire political process disenfranchised?
Muslims fall into two categories. The older generation always vote Labour. Yeah. I mean, Labour could do anything to them and they would still come back and vote Labour. Younger generation, as you just said, they just don't vote at all. Yeah. You ask most younger people if they voted, no, not interested. Yeah. Younger generation think that voting makes no difference, and it's not just voting, but all political actions, joining political parties, etc. Then we will have a new generation who are the most demonised generation in Britain today, who have absolutely no power and no stake and feel totally powerless in Britain. So we try to do too much with a community that knows nothing. So what we said is, we're never going to be able to strategically engage with any community while our own community is so apathetic, so ignorant of any of the issues or what to do about them. Now, if we start to teach young Muslims that they can make a difference and they can get politically active, in 5 years' time, those Muslims will number in their hundreds or their thousands, and they will start to engage with all communities within Britain for ethical reasons.
So you've basically got yourself a starting point. You're taking the gag off the Muslims first. And
absolutely.
There is a saying, one man can't make a difference. What do you have to say to that?
In the history of this world, it's always started with one man. There's going to be a voter registration drive in the masjid today, so if you haven't registered, make sure you vote, yeah? Then what's the point of going to Jummah when you see what's happening in Gaza right now and your MP in this area is backing the Israelis? So you can do it. Look, it's the right thing to do. You're going to pray to Allah, right? And yet the Ummah, the people who are suffering, dying around the world, all it takes for you is 10 minutes. You're telling me that is not worth it? So, it's a big thing. Yeah? Thanks, bro. Thanks so much. Bro, you know what? This pub obviously doesn't believe in voting, so we might have a chat with you afterwards, or your team, yeah? Make sure you vote.
This time I will follow you. You are my leader, right? You lead and I will follow you.
Thanks, Uncle. Thank you. I was wrong about the older generation never changing. I want that on record. Make sure you put money in the masjid, get political. Don't listen to those who say it's haram, it's fard. It's obligatory. Make sure you vote. You're defending the ummah.
Did he accept the ruling of kufr? No,
Yes, well, hold on.
Don't land in the land.
Yeah, don't talk about did he accept the ruling of the kufr.
He
was never offered that rule.
Of course he was.
What was he offered? What was he offered? No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. They say that the Prophet was offered a deal in Mecca, i.e. democracy. You rule for 1 year and we rule for 1 year, and the Prophet rejected it. That's their argument, right? I'll tell you the real deal. The real deal, the Prophet was asked, we worship your God for 1 year and you worship our God for 1 year. Now, is the Prophet of God going to go, yeah, all right then? Of course he's not. He's the Prophet of God. He's never going to accept that deal. So the deal, I haven't finished that deal. So the fact of the matter is, he was never offered the deal to say, you can worship whoever you want and just rule us for 1 year. He was never offered that deal. Check the hadith. Check the hadith yourself.
Medina. What did he establish in Medina? Islam. Yeah?
So go and establish it in Pakistan. If you were an MP, would you vote for Iraq war? If you were an MP.
No, I wouldn't.
Exactly. So how can you say that?
Muslims, when they get into that position, they do a U-turn.
That's
and we know they did. All four of them
I agree.
did.
But
all four of them voted for anti-terror legislation.
I agree.
All four of them voted for Iraq. They support their
but
war in
they're corrupt.
Afghanistan.
They're corrupt.
We need to engage in our own politics. We need to rely on ourselves.
This is our politics.
This is not our politics. You're saying go to the West.
The problem with the second generation and you lot, we had a lot of expectation from you. I'll give you a small example. That your contribution seems to be with the elder generation who was illiterate in their own language and another language. Hardworking, honest, they had integrity, self-sufficiency, all this institution establishment for you to argue. That's their contribution. If we didn't have this place here, we wouldn't be gathering 2,000 people.
Absolutely.
Or 3,000 people. You got to engage yourself by only shouting on proliferation, standing up there, kill that one, kill this one, do this one, jihad this one. Yeah. You know, you got to prepare yourself for certain things. You can do jihad by pressing of a button. Yeah. If you have the ability, you don't have to shout. Yeah. You got all young people. Yes. You're our future. Whether you're left, right, middle, or whatever it is, you're our future.
It seems that out on the street, the biggest excuse that the Muslims have for not voting is the doubt around the permissibility. Is voting halal or is voting haram? I decided to ask the experts to find out more.
I, Anthony Small Abdul Haq, will say it is haram, it is kufr and it is shirk. And obviously me saying this is not worth anything unless I back it up with the divine text. There's nothing worthy to worship, followed or obeyed except for Allah. Tawhid is anything what takes or claims to hold the attributes of Allah, whether it be the attributes of worship, the attributes of obedience, the attributes to resurrect, to create.
Democracy is kufr. Participating in democracy is kufr. Voting is kufr. You cannot say this statement. I haven't heard, to be honest with you, I haven't heard any scholar, well-known scholar, who has been accepted as a scholar by the body of scholars in the Muslim world, who said that voting is kufr or participating in political process is kufr as an open statement like this.
For me, it's not an aqidah issue. You know, if anybody who says, brother, you're committing a shirk act of aqidah, I just think they're totally lost. There are those who genuinely believe that Muslims should have, live in a Sharia society, and if they can't, if they're living somewhere else, they should do hijrah. You know what? If you follow that opinion, act upon it.
I've never heard about voting being haram in my neighborhood. It's a black neighborhood.
So I think that it's strange that it's become a controversial subject, because in reality, nobody of substance disagrees that Muslims ought to be participating in the political process.
The vast majority of Muslim scholars that I've spoken to across the spectrum of scholarship have said that it's not only allowed and permissible to vote, but it's actually an obligation upon us to be part and fulfill our civic duty. There are a minority of scholars that have a problem with it, but we need to look at why.
If we look again at the history of Medina, Rasulullah ﷺ and his group that moved to Medina were a minority, but they took active part in the affairs of the community and then eventually ruled that community.
But the problem is there are those scaremongers and idiots that you get them outside mosques calling people kafir, calling people deviant. First of all, who the hell are you to call me a kafir or a non-Muslim? You probably don't know the rules of istinja, to start takfiring on people. It's the biggest thing to call somebody a non-Muslim.
Muslims in the UK are an indigenous culture, and I'm like, you mean you don't vote? That's silly. They put it out as taboo. There's no fatwa on voting for real. Not a meaningful one. Prophet never had a hadith on not voting. It's stupid. So it's like, listen, stop imagining stuff. You're not gonna go in a voting booth and catch on fire when you come out. You know what I mean?
What it comes down to is, it comes down to Allah's names and attributes. He's the legislator. If I prostrate to this idol, the better, the good, the great good that's going to come out of it is going to be for the sake of the Muslims. But my prostration to the idol is not what I'm doing. My purpose is for the great good that's going to come out of it. That prostration is not prostration. That prostration is a tick in the ballot box, because that is allowing a man to legislate. If you want to say they're better for the sake of the Muslims, etc., they are also passing laws. They are passing laws. They are making halal haram and haram halal.
Democracy as a system to select a law among different laws that in some circumstances is considered to be kufr. But democracy as a mechanism to select a leader has nothing to do with aqidah, has nothing to do with kufr. Because if we are living in one place and we want to select a leader, the leader has no right to legislate over us, but just to lead us. Then that process to select the leader is not related to aqidah, is not related to Islam, is not related to fiqh. It is not related to halal and haram. And that's why it is permissible. Those who say about this, that it is not halal, they have to show us a solid evidence that this kind of process is haram.
Voting is haram, brother. Astaghfirullah, why are you, those are the same people that complain. Those are the same people that complain and still live in this society. If you live here, this is how this society functions, and you can't be a part of this society if you think it's just haram. If you think it's haram, you should go back to where you came from.
We live in Britain and we must obey the law of the land. This is what people say, and this is attributed to the Prophet ﷺ, that you must obey the law of the land. Rather, it was attributed to a scholar who came after that. The law of the land was when the Shura was implemented. So if the Khalifa, for example, of no divine reason decided to say that after 7 o'clock everyone must be in their home, the fact that he's implementing the Sharia on the greater aspects, we must obey. If that's the law he lays down, it's the law of the land. But when the law of the land is one of kufr and shirk, we must not obey the law of the land. I'll come with divine text for that. Allah says in the Quran, "O you who believe, do not obey the kuffar and the munafiqun."
The migration to Abyssinia is a good indication of how Muslims interacted with, let's say, a state which was not Muslim and it was Christian at the time, where the shared values of that they both held were interacted amongst the Muslims and non-Muslims. And what I find quite strange is those that are quite adverse to Muslims voting, because they say this is kufr, etc. But then when I mentioned that the Prophet, peace be upon him, praised the Abyssinian king for being a just ruler, then that completely upsets the paradigm of this kind of simplistic understanding of kufr and Islam.
Muslims don't vote, but we have shura councils. And guess what they do on shura council? They vote.
The point is, if somebody's going to listen to a theological debate outside the masjid with somebody shouting, haram, if you don't rule by Allah's rule, you're going to go to Jahannam, you're going to go to hell. First of all, bro, you don't even understand the complexities of these ayahs and the reasonings. And there are other arguments.
Subscribe to a scholar called Ibn Taymiyyah, who believed in the principle of the lesser of two evils. So even according to their lineage of Islamic training, let's say, one could still arrive at the conclusion that it is halal to vote.
Half the things that happen to Muslims, like happen to black people, black people are different. Legally, they took the vote away. Muslims are giving the vote away. We just won't vote. We'll show you. No, you show me that you are not smart. You know, and the fact of the matter is, if you don't exercise your rights, people are going to take your rights.
If we seek honor in anything other than Islam, Allah, we seek honor in anything other than Islam, Allah will humiliate us. Do you understand? So we see now Muslims using their ration and seeking honor in things other than Islam, and we doing nothing but being humiliated. We've been humiliated in the West, in the East. We've been humiliated all over. But the Ummah needs to wake up and drop this irrational concept. Do you know what I mean? These people are calling us now to commit shirk and blaming it on what the greater good, etc., etc., etc. Drop ration and have tawakkul on Allah. If we drop the ration and have tawakkul on Allah, then the outcome can be nothing but success.
The guardian of Jannah is one angel, and his name is Ridwan, and he's going to check the register on the Day of Judgment who enters that paradise. Nobody else, no idiots on the British streets are going to decide, oh, your name's not on the register, you suddenly become a kafir. And it's a really important matter. How can you go around doing takfir of people? You don't even understand anything yourself.
I'm here in Dagenham today. I've taken it upon myself to try and demonstrate to the Muslims within this area the impact that they had when the BNP came into power, and to show them through a visual depiction. We're not there to cause any trouble, and we want it to be light-hearted. All we want to do is show our people the impact that their non-voting is having on them, their future generations, and this country as a whole. Right, what I thought is we make it really, really simple, yeah? I was going to write a massive writing, voting is a numbers game, do you count? Right, we want a bit of humour to this, right? An undercover fascist. The BNP claimed my vote, who claimed yours? We need something around how only 3 out of 10 Muslims are voting. No.
That's 7 for the BNP.
Okay, bye. Well, initially, there were 30 people planned for this event outside the mosque, but unfortunately, a lot of the organisations that were supposed to be supporting me fell through, and from 30, it looks as though I might just be on my own. We're going to Barking Mosque to make a statement. I'm going to see if I can change a few people's minds. I do believe that to change the world, you have to start with one person, and you have to empower others. So if we can empower others to get involved today, then we know we're on a good cause. I'm feeling all right. I'm a little bit nervous because I want this to work. Whether or not people are going to take up on it is yet to be seen. Right, let's get these out. Let's get our people here quickly. Abs, get that. Right, let's get our people out here. Get some people up, man. Bro, we need some help, man. We're trying to inspire brothers to vote. That's it. Let's get it up. Hold it nice and high. Who's going to get involved? Are you going to get involved in the political process, or are you going to silence yourself? We're trying to get people to realise that by keeping their mouth shut during the elections, you're swaying, you're tipping the scale. Look at this. It's a numbers game. If you don't count, you don't have a voice. You're gagging yourself as Muslims. If you're not going to vote, why are you standing there? Either ask us a question, tell us why you're not voting. Have you verified that, bruv? Because I've got sheikhs lined up telling us that it's not haram. And if you can help your people socially and politically, because I don't buy the argument of shirk. How can it be shirk? How are you going to change things if you don't engage? How did he do it? What are you going to do? Bruv, this is Islam. This is your Islam. I want to empower my ummah. Get me a sheikh to prove to me that democracy is haram and voting is haram in an election where we have a voice.
We're basically trying to teach the Muslims here that they need to get politically active. If that means voting intelligently, they need to do it. If that means joining a political party, they need to do it. Whatever it takes, they need to get politically active to defend their rights in this country or anywhere around the world. They're telling you that you can't do anything, that you have no power, that you're nothing. And that's what you believe. And so you do nothing, and you stay at home, and you think to yourselves, there's nothing we can do. They're so powerful, we can't make a difference. You want the BNP to get into power? You stay at home and don't vote in the elections. That's what you did in the last election. That's what you're going to do in this election. And when they close this mosque down, then don't cry, don't complain, don't start rioting. The standard question of Muslims always ask is, well, okay, fine, I listen to you, I'm going to get political, who do you want me to vote for? And It's a difficult question to answer. What really needs to happen is that they need to get political and understand that politics is important.
Ask yourself, if every single Muslim in this country disengaged and we silenced ourselves, what kind of political clout are we going to have? If you haven't got a Muslim representative in our districts, in our boroughs, in our schools as governors, we cannot make a difference, we cannot change the system, we can cry about it. If you want to change the system, you want to change this country, get involved and you see if it works. Don't be so short-sighted unless you're afraid, and you tell me as Muslims if you're afraid. Are you afraid? No. Right. Are you afraid? I want to hear the Ummah speak for once. No. Are we going to take it on ourselves, inshallah, to inspire our brothers and sisters?
Ameen.
You know what the biggest killer of Islam in this country will be? It's ignorance. It's our own ignorance. It's the fact that we spend all our time fighting over the little things that separate us, rather than all the big things that unite us. We don't focus on issues because we're too busy focusing on our own politics. Break yourself out of your little hole.
We must unite.
Inshallah.
Muslims must unite.
The BNP is not about white and black and white and Asian. They have a very fixed remit. It's to silence the Muslims. They say, we don't care, we want Sikhs and we want Hindus and we want black people. What we don't want is Muslims, which means they have separated you out. So if they've separated you out, it's now your obligation to stand up and say, you know what, I can do this without you. We are powerful enough an entity. We have more Muslims in this country than there are BNP supporters. We can shut them up in 5 minutes if only we weren't too cowardly or too lazy or misguided. But let me put it to you this way. If 300 racists live in a district and 1,000 Muslims live in that district, 280 of the racists voted, only 240 of the Muslims voted. That racist party came into power. Who's to blame? Us.
A lot of my boys here, they live around here, but they didn't vote last year.
Inshallah ta'ala, man, we'll make a change together.
You did a great job, man. You did a great job. Oh, look at you, Assalamu alaikum. You did a brilliant job, all right? If every Muslim was intelligent as that young girl, we wouldn't have any problems. We wouldn't even be here. Well done. You're the future.
Well, the crowds have dispersed, the mosque is empty, and we made our statement. It might have started off a little bit slow and a little bit lonely, but I think we inspired the people. And as I always say, if you're going to change the world, you have to start one person at a time. And if I've inspired 100, who can inspire 1,000, who can inspire 1,000,000, then I've done my job.
Any Muslim who doesn't vote, who stays at home, or even says that it's wrong to vote, it will be on their heads when the next war happens. It's on their heads when they close these mosques down and burn these mosques to the ground. They should be ashamed of themselves. The only way in this country that we're ever going to get our rights and maintain our rights is to get political. There's no other way at all.
When you're a target of a bully, you notice the bully that much more. Everyone else doesn't call him a bully. They see it here and there. But with us, we're feeling the brunt of it. And we're going to get the brunt of it if they come into power. It's going to be like the persecution of the Jews all over again. This is a reminder to us of what Nazism is all about and what fascism truly means. Sometimes, through rhetoric, we forget the dangers that Nazism and fascism bring to society as a whole and to future generations and to the people who are chosen to be the victims of them. As Muslims and as people, we need to remember and we need to unite against the problems of the past to avoid them happening again. Remember, history only repeats itself when the people allow it to be repeated. We stood up to it before, and I think we need to stand up to it again. If we don't stand united, we could be witnessing another one of these and having another memorial statue go up, and then it would be our fault. You decide. But you know what, on a serious tip though, I think the message that we're trying to get across here is very, very important, is the fact that we can make a difference and we're choosing not to. And the thing is, we've ignored the fact long enough, and we did ask the question, and the reason we asked the question, are we to blame, is to make us wake up, to make us ask ourselves what we can do to change things and how hard it is for us to do so. Let's face it, getting out and putting a tick on a box isn't going to be the end of the world for us. It might take 5 minutes, it might take an hour, even if it takes a day. In a day, we can make a change that our ancestors fought for, righted for, and people all over the world are still dying for. Don't get me wrong, I'm not an advocate for democracy. I'm an advocate for taking part in the system within which you live. And if we're going to make a change in this country, for the better of this country and for the people of this country, then I think we have to get up and stop being lazy and realise that if we can make a change, then it's our responsibility to do it. And the onus falls upon us. We can't be relying on the world to fix our problems or the government to fix our problems until we first fix the government.